Hello, my name is Joseph Pirayou. I want to welcome you to today's program. Uh, Forgot the name of the program for a second. Ashur. There's a lot of information here that I was trying to put together. In the beginning, Ashur, the name of the program is, and I'm trying to put the subject that is Ashur Empire and the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And I noticed that we've been going like 8 programs, and today's the ninth one. And I'm trying to put things together because if we want to stay on this program, I think I will have to. I mean, for the Ashur Empire and the 10 tribes, I think I need at least like 4 or 5 more years to finish that. And it's a fun subject. Sorry, I'm looking for a part that is related to the tribes that consist of the 10 tribes that are lost. So let me recap real quick. Uh, when I started doing this program, it was talking about this book. This book is called Bible, right? Now you don't have to believe in it or accept it or whatever, but there is a book called Bible, and in this book, basically starts by this person or God or whatever you want to call it that created this earth that we live in. He's our creator. That's how the story starts. And he creates everything: stars, worlds, uh, animals, vegetation. Finally, creates human being in his image. And the human being rebel and they don't want to follow him because he said, "You have to obey me." They didn't obey him. Then supposedly he said, "I'm going to send a savior that will save you." And we get to the part that is New Testament. So there's so many things in there that you just have to take their word for it, not just specifically take their word for it, but accept it and believe in it. Of course, there is some history, there is some archaeology involved that you can check things out. But the reason I picked this subject was, first, it relates to the Ashur Empire, our ancestors, my ancestors, and it's a subject that it talks about. Like when I started with Abraham, he says there was this guy Abraham, this God that created. He said, "I want you to go to this place. I will multiply you. I will do this for you. There would be kings coming out of you, nations out of you." Then he picks his son Isaac. Then through the son Isaac, he tells him the same thing and tells him to both Abraham and Isaac, not only you will have nations, kings coming out of you, but from your bloodline the whole world would be blessed. Then it goes to Jacob, the son of Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Then Jacob, the name changes to Israel. Then he has 12 boys. Then those promises split. The nations, the prosperity, all of these falls in the hand of Joseph tribe through his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. But the bloodline of Judah, that's the one that the king comes. That's the bloodline that we see in Gospel of Matthew, Gospel of Luke. That's the bloodline that is traced from Mary, goes to Adam, or from Abraham, comes down to what's his face? Jesus, or the husband of Mary. So the bloodline all is through Judah. That's the kingly bloodline. That's the royal bloodline that they try to emphasize for us. So there is a split in there. Then in that split, things happen to these families. They scatter. They go to Egypt. They become slaves. Then they come out. They come back to the promised land. Then they become a kingdom. Then they split. The kingdom of Israel becomes North Israel, South Judah. Then the Assyrians, Ashuri, attack the north and south, destroy the Israel kingdom. They become lost. The southern kingdom lasts a few more years. Then the Babylonians come over and they destroy that kingdom. They're gone. So those promises made in that book become like nothing. So he was just telling us the story. At the end of the story, it says from the bloodline of David, there would be a king ruling on Israel forever. That was the promise God made to David. Few generations after David, the last king, what's his name? Nebuchadnezzar comes to Judah and kills all of his sons. Then he takes him to Babel, blinds him, and he dies there. End of the story, right? See, one problem that I have with, how should I put it in a politically correct way? I can't. I don't go to church. You know why? Because when I study this book, when I read this book, I say, what you guys are teaching over there? It's a lot of preaching. There's a lot of traditions, man-made traditions. And when you ask these people about what is written here, because these people, they ask us to, I don't want to say worship them, but they want us to accept them as the ones representing Jesus Christ. But at the same time, they don't know jack about this book. Because if you get your authority from the book, you should know what is written in the book. Then we ask you about the book, then they tell us to shut up because you have to follow us because the traditions or the preachers say, oh, this is not important, Jesus only. I say, yeah, Jesus is our Savior. However, there are promises made here in this book to strengthen that faith that we have in Jesus. All this said, we were at the position of clues. Today, I'm going to go just one part before we finish the subject. Is there is a tribe of Dan. One of the 12 sons of Jacob or Israel is named Dan. So I don't know how much you remember. Jacob marries two sisters. He falls in love with Rachel. Her father promises Rachel to Jacob, says, work 7 years for me. After 7 years, he works. They throw a party. There is a wedding. Jacob gets drunk, gets up in the morning. It's the older sister in bed with him. So the uncle says, we have to give the older sister first before the younger. So he marries Leah, the older. Then the uncle gives him, what's her name? Rachel. He has two wives. Then during the course, Leah keeps popping children. Rachel doesn't have any children. Then she has her handmaid. She tells her to go sleep with Jacob. And Jacob says, thank you. He's a good husband, listens to his wife. The first baby that he has from that handmaid, her name is Bilba, is called Dan. And when you read chapter 30, it's Rachel that names the baby Dan because she was complaining to Jacob, and Jacob was not happy. And she says, this baby born, God has judged me. So all of this said is that name of this son born through the handmaid, one of the 10 sons of the tribes of Israel, is Dan. That name is Judge. Chapter 49, Jacob gathers all his boys. He says, here, I want to give you what will happen to you in the last days. That's very interesting. Starting of beginning of the chapter 49 of Genesis, when you read that. So what do you mean shall befall you in the last days? I don't know if you are in the last days or not, but this was like 17, 1800 years ago. 17, 1800 years before Christ, that supposedly that story happened. And uh, Jacob gives blessing to Joseph. That's when you find out that's the bloodline goes towards nations, goes towards prosperity. This is the Israel that God is talking to David, that's the nation would be is through Joseph. Then he comes to Judah. He says, Judah is this, this. Then he says, the scepter, the royal bloodline is from Judah. Okay, so we have Judah, bloodline, Joseph, prosperity. Good, we're done. However, he gets to Dan. So let's see that first photo of Dan, because there are a lot of, when you look for the subject, tribe of Dan, and you see some of these books coming out, Dan, the pioneer of Israel. Where is the tribe of Dan today? So I looked at that book, and there is that shield that looks like a serpent in the middle. So the reason we have this, we go to the next photo. That one is from chapter 49 of Genesis, when Jacob gets to Dan and he makes his proclamation or whatever it's called towards Dan. He says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. So that's the two verses that we have from Dan. In the NIV version, it says, Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. And Dan will be a serpent by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider tumbles backward. Right? So we have Dan shall judge his people. And we saw when you checked what Rachel said, yeah, his name is Dan because God judged Rachel. However, this is in English. When we come to our language, Ashuri or Hebrew, when Jacob is talking to Dan, Dan means judge. So in the language says, judge shall judge his people, or Dan shall Dan his people. And there is a proof here that then, when we have what they call it in the Bible, Joshua 19:47, Judges 18:11 and 12, and Judges 18 verse 29. When you see that when the tribe of Dan comes uh, to the promised land with Joshua, each tribe is supposed to go get their own land and fight for it. Judah fights for itself, Joseph fights for itself, uh, Naphtali, Asher, this and that. Dan has fight for himself. However, every one of these places that they conquer, they name it Dan. So when you look at these three chapters, you see that when Jacob tells Dan shall judge his people, in English doesn't give us the true meaning. Especially this NIV is so out of like way. It says Dan will provide justice for his people. When you read that, you get confused when you see what the tribe of Dan was supposed to be. Because the second part of it is that Dan will be a serpent by the roadside. I have a photo. Can we see the next photo? So in the desert or places that they have sand or loose gravel, you can see that there was a snake in that area because of the way the body moves. You know, that photo you see, if you go back like a couple hundred yards or meters, you say, hey, wait a minute, there's a snake in front of us, ahead of us. Why? Because that serpent that is riding here, Dan will be a serpent by the roadside. That's how you're going to know there is a serpent there. Okay, great. Dan is danning his people. Is there serpent on the roadside? What does this have to do with the lost tribes, the 10 lost tribes, Ashur Empire, and all these things? I have a book here, Judah's Scepter and Joseph's Birthright. And in that book, there are so many chapters that if you have watched this program, you know that one part of the book that I showed you is that it talks about the promises that was made to Judah regarding the land. And this book was written early 1900s. And he says one of the promises that needs to be fulfilled is that the Jews get their land back. And he says, at the writing of this book, the land is in the hand of the unspeakable Turk. This is J.J. Allen. Wrote this book early 1900s before uh, J.H. Allen. I'm sorry. J.H. Allen wrote that book. And he's one of the people that over 100 years ago came to the conclusion, let's read the Bible as it is written without making it spiritual, without adding man-made traditions. Let's see what it says, what it's writing about. And this is the part that the book that really helped me understand uh, because he's talking about the birthright, scepter. Joseph gets the birthright, Judah gets the scepter. Is talking about Israel becomes Samaria, becomes Ephraim, how the Jews go to Babylon, they return. Uh, what else is in here? It's talking about Dan. It's a very interesting. It's a, like few pages that he wrote about Dan. So it's called about certain Serpent's Trail, Dan, right? And he's starting with the same part that I started with Genesis 49, 17, 16, and 17. And it says, Dan, when Jacob is telling him, is that Dan shall Dan his people. And as I mentioned, there are three places that Joshua 19:47, Judges 18:11, 12, and Judges 18:29. And let me read that part. It says that uh, they were people that were secure in a place called Laish, that the people that were at quiet and secure, and the tribe of Dan smote them with the edge of the sword and burned their city with fire. And they built a city and dwelt therein, and they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born into Israel, even though the name of the place was Laish at the first. Everywhere this Dan tribe goes, lives a leaves a serpent trail. Are you ready? All right. We have a list here. Now, another thing, in Hebrew and Ashuri language, we don't have vowels. So when you write Dan in English, Dan, in my language is Dallat Nun. Either you put some lines on top or on the bottom it goes A, like a vowels. So I want to give you some of these names, see if they are familiar. Uh, Denmark, DN. Scandinavia, Sweden, Danube, the river, the Dnieper, the Dniester, Danau, Dan-In, Danaster, Dandari, Danes, Don, London, Edinburgh, DN, Dalat Nun. It says, wherever the tribe of Dan went and conquered that place, named it after their father Dan. Dunkirk. What else do we have? Dardanelles. Just this guy keeps on. Was a bigger list somewhere else. I can't find Dardanelle, Macedonia. What else? I said about the Dniester, Don. There's a tribe of Danaan in Ireland, Tuatha Danaan. You see Dan's D, Daladnun, DN all over Europe. River Jordan. There's Dan in there too. Uh, in Irish language, I think judge means done. Somehow it has entered that language, this Hebrew uh, language of Tuatha De Danans, Danes, Danish, Dunkirk, Dunbar, Dunraven, Doon, River Don in Scotland, River Doon in England, Dons in Ireland, as I mentioned, Dunkirk, Dunbar, Dundee, Dunraven, and last but not least, the last two capital cities of Scotland and England, Edinburgh and London. So, according to this book, the tribe of Dan, being Danning everywhere they conquered, and supposedly being one of the tribes of Israel, that's how you serpent trail you can follow and see where these people ended. I don't know. Is it true? I don't know. I don't know. Like a few weeks ago, my wife and I we went to spend a few days in London, Edinburgh, Amsterdam, Paris. The British Museum we saw. Uh, when we went to London, we went to St. Paul Cathedral, and I had read a book regarding uh, Apostle Paul. The 2 years that he was in the prison, we don't have any more information in the book of Acts, and the tradition that Paul, his neck was cut off in Rome. That's a tradition. It's not in the Bible. However, there was a book that was found like in mid 1850s that was chapter 29 of book of Acts, and it's says that Apostle Paul went to Spain, and from there he went to Britain, and he preached in London. I don't know if you know it, London was built by Romans. This is way back before, I think before Christ, maybe. I'm not sure. But he, and the cathedral is on a hill. Supposedly, London is all flat, and that hill is not too high, but that's where the church was built. And I asked the people we went for a tour. I said, "What is the tradition? What is the reason that you guys are calling it Saint Paul? Why is it built here?" And he said, "It's just the church. It's on a hill." And I was asking him, I was like, "Do you know there is like at least some books that are written that Apostle Paul preached on this mount here? That's why the church was built on the top." And the guy was laughing. He's like, "Are you kidding me? What are you talking? Paul never, the English guy, never came to Britain, never." Like, okay, take it easy, man. I'm just asking. I read a book and was like, kind of convincing, but nothing. I don't know which one is true. Then we went to Scotland, and the reason we went to Edinburgh was that you want to show that photo, that rock. We spent 2 days in Edinburgh just to see that rock. There is that writing. I don't know if we can show that. It says stone of coronation stone. It's on the corner, that writing. Can you see that? If you can open that up, make it bigger. So this is a photo. Great, perfect. So if you can see on the corner, it says Stone of Destiny, still used to for inaugurating the British monarchs. First, when I went there, first of all, they told us you cannot take photos. Somebody took a photo, gave it to me. Not gonna say who, but this is the rock that they put in that chair like a few months ago when Charles became king. They took this rock from that castle in Scotland, in Edinburgh Castle. They brought it all the way to what is it called? Abbey's, whatever. There was that church, Abbey, and the chair is there. Took a photo of that one too, and they put that rock under there, and that's the only way they legitimize the king in British Empire. Why? Why is this rock important? I asked the guy that was in the gallery there, and the other things you see is the Scottish royal jewelry. It's not that many of them, but it's still there, protected, nice. They have their own history, Scots. But what's going on? I asked him. I said, "Why the rock?" So, well, we have a tradition. I said, "Where's it coming from?" I said, "I've read other books. You read books, maybe you get more confused. But I said I read a book that this is the tomb. This is Jacob's pillar, and this is the one that when in Bible you read that he slept on it and he saw that dream. There's the stairs going up and down heaven, and he poured oil on it and called it Bet-El, house of God. And there's a tradition that this rock is that Bet-El, the house of God that Jacob had, and is been coming with the people of Judah tribe traveling and kings. And it was like, are you kidding me? It's like laughing at you. Now, why I'm bringing this? Let me conclude this here. Some years back, uh, we were at this convention, sales or whatever it was. The speaker said something that has stayed with me, and the more I see things, I can see how true that is. He said that what is popular is not always right, and what is right is almost never popular. When I was reading these books, one thing that was really clear to me is the name of God, because I brought this subject to some of these priests, either the tradition church or these uh, what they call it, Protestant churches. There's so many preachers, priests in the San Jose area and outside. And I asked this question, Ahia Ashur Chaya. What does that mean? Because from what I read, God's name is not Jehovah. It's not me saying it, I'm just reading it in the original language. And they don't like it. That's why when I was doing this program, it's just giving you information. There's a lot of things out there that they are so popular, oh, Jehovah, oh, so many things like preachers, traditions, man-made traditions that you go to these churches, you follow, and has like zero effect as far as what faith is being getting you closer to Christ. As I said before, you don't have to believe in this book, but don't change it, teach it. And what I've learned is that it's not popular to bring these subjects. For those of you who watch this program and you go to church and belong to any of these denominations, has any of these priests or pastors talked about the lost tribes? Have they talked about the Ashur Empire? Have they talked about that God says, "Blessed be Ashur, the work of my hands"? No. So, what do we need? We need Assyria TV. We need this program so we can bring it to you. At least you have additional information to make up your mind. Today is the last part for this subject. If there is interest later on, because we can talk for years about this lost tribes, what happened, where they are, but it's up to you if you want to do that. After this program, we will continue with other subjects. But as I said, what is right, what is popular is not always right, and what is right is almost never popular. Saying this, are we ready to finish with the dance of unity? Sheikhani, Ahiya Ashur Khaya. Thank you. Mabqila.
شيخاني.